So I got to say, I'm a little surprised at this. The lawsuit against Lizzo by several of her former dancers, backup dancers, has just taken over the internet. People are taking sides on this. A lot of people are tearing into Lizzo, saying that essentially she was a bad boss. But remember, these women are saying they were forced in their minds to do things that they didn't want to do, including going to a sex club in Amsterdam, fearing that if they didn't, they'd get fired.
Right, and as it turns out, and we should say, again, these are allegations put forward by 3 former dancers. We have not heard Lizzo's side of this. This is a lawsuit.
That is correct.
And to be fair to Lizzo, she is not guilty of anything until this goes to trial. However, I want to talk about one of the things that obviously people have focused on in this lawsuit is a trip to Amsterdam that when Lizzo was on tour, she brought all of her backup dancers apparently to this club in Amsterdam. And they allege, the 3 women who have filed this lawsuit, that they were encouraged or forced to do certain things in that club that they didn't want to do as far as interacting with the dancers. The club in particular it's basically a famous club in Amsterdam. It's famous for the performers using a banana, and the banana goes certain places. I'm not going to get into that. But Lizzo this has been a mission for her. Listen to her. This was back in 2019. Her talking, she was on the radio in Amsterdam talking about wanting to go to this club.
I love Amsterdam. I had a day off yesterday, so I got some rest finally, or kind of, it's Amsterdam, so we party.
I saw that you saw a live sex show. Please tell me everything about the sex show.
It was people, man. It was crazy. They were just doing it, but you know what? It was beautiful. But I'm trying to go to the show where you eat the banana. Which one is that?
Balls.
And you have to go.
Yes. And
That's what I want to do.
Then you have to eat it.
I need my potassium, if you know what I'm saying.
Well, it has certainly become a very hot topic in entertainment. So joining us right now are 2 of the plaintiffs, Ariana Davis and Crystal Williams, along with their attorney, Neama Rahmani. Ariana and Crystal, and Neama, welcome to TMZ Live.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So what I'm interested in here, because I've read the lawsuit, I know what you folks are alleging here. There's a part of it where you say that you're afraid if you asked for certain things, there'd be some kind of retaliation.
Or if you didn't go along with
that you were afraid, so more in your mind that you were afraid, and there are other things that you say are more overt. So can you kind of distinguish between the two? Were these demands or suggestions made by Lizzo, as you say, were they direct, where they said, I really want you to do it, or was it more, I'm afraid if I don't, I might get fired?
Well, I'll start from an attorney perspective, and then I'll turn it over to Crystal and Ari. But, under California law, of course, the reason sexual harassment is unlawful is there's a presumption that the employee can't say no. The reason I can't be a creepy boss is because if I ask someone out on a date, they may feel pressure to say yes, or they might lose their job. And that's exactly what happened here. But why don't you guys go into some of the facts of the case?
Yeah, I think for both of us, there was like this always looming feeling of thinking that if you didn't do something or you didn't adhere to certain suggestions or demands that your job could be in jeopardy. I mean, there have been specific instances, for example, whenever we were in contact with our agents and we were trying to negotiate receiving a retainer while we were working with the team, things kind of started being more tense in the work environment, more hostile. So right off the bat, we kind of already felt like the energy was shifting. And after negotiations for retainers began, we got an email before one of the shows, basically from somebody from her management team, saying that the way that we have been acting was unprofessional and the attitudes that we were exhibiting on the job was unacceptable, and that it could be grounds for termination. And that's just one specific instance that we went through in regards to working with the team.
Yes, and I will say that did happen right before a show, and we had to then go on stage and be like, happy and, be performers. But there is so many instances where dancers who did, have fun with her and, go along with like what she was doing and, be down for anything that they were favored. They were hired for more shows. They were invited on, like private jets and to do cool things and, could hang out with her in like tropical settings like Hawaii and stuff like that. Some of our coworkers, it's just like there was no line between professionalism and personal. And so we had in our minds that if we weren't, down for anything, that we would then be ostracized later. It was this unspoken thing in the camp that if you weren't super fun, like if you like skipped out on all of the like outings and, all that stuff, that you wouldn't be seen in good favor from Lizzo, and that you would then not be considered like one of the people that is like cool and down for anything, and then therefore not be booked for as many jobs. So yeah, could we have said no to certain things? I think that is a question that technically you could say, yes, we could say no, but also there was such a power dynamic involved. And I don't think consent is a thing when there's an imbalance of power.
You mentioned that there was some kind of a dispute over a retainer. When you parted company with Lizzo, when both of you parted company with Lizzo, was it just kind of happened? Were you terminated? Did you quit? How did the separation go?
Yeah, for me, my situation was a little bit different than Ari's. There was a meeting that Lizzo had. It was all of our meetings were pretty intense, but this one was a more intense meeting with her, just emphasizing the fact that she wasn't pleased with our performing and that we still weren't dancing up to, her standards. And basically this was after the intense re-audition that we went through after, having hours of rehearsal, to which she then brought up the allegations of us drinking before shows. I raised my hand to speak. She allowed me to speak. And in that moment, I let her know that, we never partook in those activities and that we would never put ourselves, her, or the show or our jobs in jeopardy. And days later, one of her tour managers terminated me in a hotel lobby.
And Ari, what was your experience?
Chrissy was fired, I was fired, and Noelle resigned at the same time I was being fired. That's just to preface everything. But what goes into my termination is that I had felt for a really long time that they were questioning my abilities due to weight gain. It was never explicitly said, hey, you're gaining weight. Your job is in jeopardy. It was never that. It was very nuanced. It was very under the rug. And I think that language was used to keep from being canceled. In a way, cancel culture is so big. And I think that a lot of artists fear that. So I think she kind of tiptoed around it in a way where she wasn't blatantly saying anything, crazy, but there was always this underlying thing of like, are you okay? Why do you seem different? We can see right through you. Someone literally told me that we can see right through you, someone being the choreographer. And that was right before a private meeting that they had pulled me into, disguising it as a safe space to tell us what's wrong. And in this meeting, she stated as well that, dancers get fired for gaining weight. And then she kind of paused and looked at me, and I still don't know if she really meant to single me out in that moment. But when she looked at me and she said that, I was kind of like, so she's really concerned about my weight. And then, when we had that private meeting, when I was kind of cornered, they kind of wouldn't let me, get away with not telling them something personal. So, and a reason why something was wrong with me. So I ended up telling them that I struggle with, anxiety and depression, and that I'm in recovery from an eating disorder. And as soon as I said eating disorder, they immediately were like, oh, like in their head, it was making sense as to why I was gaining weight because it had something to do with an eating disorder problem.
I'm sorry, Arnie. I just wanted to ask you about the reaction that since you filed this lawsuit, there have been other people who are no longer in Lizzo's employ who have come forward and said that they understand what you're talking about. They had similar experiences. I'm wondering, and maybe Neama, you can speak to this as well. If this goes to trial, have you spoken to other employees or former employees that you expect that would come forward to testify on your behalf?
Well, I have, Charles, and so I can tell you this: in the past 24 hours since we filed the lawsuit, we've had witnesses come forward, former employees of Lizzo, current and former dancers who have said, hey, this happened to me too. I experienced this. This is exactly just like the Me Too movement. There's strength in numbers, and there's this fear of, should I speak out? What's going to happen to me? Am I going to lose my job? What's going to happen to my career? And there's folks that have contacted us, directly, and they want to be witnesses. Others just want to help anonymously. But there's really strength in numbers, and I expect more and more people to come forward, because when you're dealing with an employer like Lizzo, unfortunately, it's not just Crystal, it's not just Ari, and it's not just Noel. I mean, there's usually other folks that are affected, and I fully expect them to come forward and to testify at trial.
Well, look, we really appreciate you giving us the time. It's obviously, this is taken over the internet, so we really appreciate you coming on TMZ Live. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Wow, this is interesting.
It is going to be very, very interesting, I think, going forward. It's just, I am shocked at how much reaction there's been across the entertainment world.
Yeah, no,
to this
there has been.